Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to everyone. मैं इंजीनियर सलमान अहमद खान एंड वेलकम टू माय यूट्यूब चैनल। आज का जो हमारा टॉपिक है इट इज़ अबाउट द ऑपरेशंस एंड सप्लाई चेन मैनेजमेंट इन द स्टील इंडस्ट्री। Before I start about talking the operations and supply chain management in the steel industry, it is also very much important to know the basic definition of the steel. So this slide, according to the World Steel Association, the definition of the steel is an alloy of the iron and the carbon, containing less than 2% of the carbon and less than 1% of the magnesium. Uh, I talk about the World Steel Association. It is basically an association which is actually associated with the different countries and their steel industries. This association actually gathers the data based on the production of the different companies which are situated in the different countries. They gather the data based on the production, based on the technologies, based on the usage of the raw materials consumption, based upon uh, the data of the health and safety management, quality management, and they also talked about the technology innovations. Further, they also provide the academic trainings on the steel industry. So, according to this association, steel is being produced in the world based upon the two technologies. And that technologies is the blast furnace and the electric arc furnace. And according to their research or the data published by them, steel production is nearly about 70% done through the blast furnace. And 30% is done through the electric arc furnace. If I talk about their raw material, the blast furnace technology use the raw material of the iron ores, limestones, coke coals, etc. While the electric furnace, if we talk about that, their raw material is mainly the recycled steel scrap. So steel is basically the backbone of the modern civilization. It plays an important role in the economy and it is everywhere around the world. Either it is in through the building infrastructure, bridges, automotive, railways, energies, households, machines and the equipment, oil and gas, ships. These all sectors contain the steel. If we talk about the annual steel production, based on the data from the World Steel Association, China is number one. China is leading, actually producing more crude steel than any other country. Then India, Japan, United States, Russia, South Korea, Germany, Brazil, Turkey, Iran, and etc. If I talk about the role of the steel industry in Pakistan, so according to the data from the Pakistan Association of the Large Steel Producers, steel industry actually contribute 0.7% of the Pakistan GDP. It actually produced 9 to 10 millions of the steels annually, containing product related to the rebars, the coils, the wire rods, the channels, etc. It represents 3.55% of the large scale manufacturing index and generates 300 billions of the revenue. Contains the taxation duties, the incomes, and the other things. It has actually provided the employment to the hundred or thousand of that. Either that employment could be in form of the skilled laborers, um, electricians, plumbers, fitters, you can say the laborers and melters, casters, etc. So this industry is also playing a key role, and the major player here are Amreli steel, Aisha steel, FF steel, Mughal steel, Navina steel, and the Sheikhpur steel. So before uh, starting my presentation on my actual topic, steel, we can say that the steel is the major contributor to any country economy. When you have a stronger steel industry, when you have more steel industries, or you can say when you're producing more steels in any country, it's mean your economy is very much stronger. And later on, that steel will produce a pivotal role in the housing constructions, road, railway, bridges, engineering and the machineries, automotive industries, shipbuilding, and etc. So it means that steel industry is a backbone of any country economy. And even for Pakistan, it is also very important. So now coming to my actual topic of the supply chain management. When we talk about the supply chain management, so this is the basically the structure is. It contains the planning. When I talk about planning, it contains the supply chain designs, the demand planning, need assessments, determine specification. Now, in planning, we used to do the sales operations planning. We used to do the production planning based upon the sales and marketing data we received. And when we do the production planning, we plan for the raw material. We plan for the equipment and the machineries, spares. We plan for the operational and the consumable spares accordingly in order to have a smooth production. And then we determine the specification of each raw material, materials, equipment, spare parts, and then set their inventory data in terms of their consumption pattern, forecast patterns, etc. And then when we combine these data and send to the procurement for the sourcing or purchasing of that material, the procurement department circulates that inquiry in the market. They take quotations from different suppliers, keeping in view of the 5 Rs, which means the right place at the right time with the right quantity, with the right quality, with the right supplier. Procurement does the vendor management. They shortlist the vendors based upon their expertise, their supply scope, their performances, and in terms of obviously the negotiations. After that, there is a role of the logistic in between, which is actually called inbound and outbound logistics. Inbound and outbound logistics talks about the shipping of the raw material, which we used to procure from different countries around the globe. Either it could be domestic, either it could be from the import side, from the international vendors. And in between, there are the documents, which we call the bill of landing, bill of materials, or commercial invoice, packing list, quality inspection reports. So this is actually the role of logistic here. The logistic also used to do the shipment of the finished goods, which you actually produce them. They also used to do the internal movements within the company. For example, movement of the scrap from one place to another. You produce the billets and then you move it to the other site where you wanted to do the rolling. And then there is a manufacturing. Obviously, when we talk about the manufacturing in the steel has been done through the two major parts, major sections, as I already explained you and talk about the iron blast furnace, the electric arc furnace, which actually used to produce the steel, and after that you actually do the casting and convert that molten steel into some shape. Either you wanted to do in the billet form, in any other form. Depends upon your requirement. And then you do the way I will talk about this later in my slide as well. And then we talk about the warehouse and the inventory management. When we talk about this section, the planning and the warehouse inventory management is almost the same. Material management talks about incorporating the correct specification in your material master data, incorporating the exact figures based upon the consumption patterns, incorporating the min-max levels of the inventory. Also, you do the first in, first out, and last in, first out uh, management based upon the user requirement. And then you also identify the dead stocks. And last thing is the distribution. Distribution is about the order fulfillment, tracking of the batches, lots, and repack process. It's the distribution and the logistics, it is almost the same. So now I was initially talking about the supply chain in the steel industry. So, so this is the overall summary of the supply chain in the steel industry. You do the raw material sourcing of the iron ore, coke, coals, limestone, scrap, ferroalloys, and then you actually managed or go for its inbound logistic transportation, which contain receiving and inspection, raw material handling, storage, and etc. And after that, when you receive those raw material, you do its manufacturing in terms of the melting through either blast furnace or through the electric arc furnace. It depends. Here in this slide, I have only mentioned the technology of the blast furnace, although you can also pass through, you can also make the steel through the electric arc furnace. And later on, this will be explained later in this slide as well. And after that, when you actually make that product in between and after the manufacturing, when your product is based upon work in progress inventory, you also check its quality control. And after the product is finished, you also do that the same things, and then you actually dispatch it in the market. So these are the products which actually I was talking earlier in my presentation, which are iron rebars, wire rods, steel coils, steel sheets, steel pipes, and the shafts and the structural sections based upon the industrial requirements. So the first thing is here is the major thing is the raw materials in the steel industry. And you know, this is a very robust supply chain of the raw material and the refractories and the scrap, which actually ensures the uninterrupted steel production with the quality, cost efficiency, and the sustainability. I already talked about the raw materials of the iron ore, uh, limestone, coals, and the scrap. But what are the refractories? This is a new word here. So refractories basically are also important for manufacturing the steel. And they actually matters a lot when you wanted to produce the high quality raw materials, steel, right refractory selection and management improves the furnace life and the safety obviously, because while you are producing the steel, it is also very important to make sure the health and safety and the environment of that. So refractory plays an important role in your manufacturing technology. And that refractory could be either in form of the refractory bricks, castables, insulating materials, lining materials, and lining material I already talked about, castables, and it could be coil grouts, etc. So, right effective selections plays a very important role in the manufacturing of the steel. While I talk about the scrap could be in form of the shredded scrap, in terms of the HMS, in terms of it could be any other form of the obsolete scrap of the car and things. So when we receive the scrap from the different suppliers, we used to segregate them. We separate the ferrous and the non-ferrous material. Also do a little bit cuttings and sharings to make sure that we have a size. I was talking about the raw materials in the steel industry. So now I talked about, I already talked about this in a very detail. So this slide is according to the World Steel Association data that specify or mention the raw material used in the steel making. While we are using the iron ore, coke coal, limestone, and recycled steel, there are other alloying elements as well, such as magnesium, silicon, chromium, nickel, and carbon mill scales are also added while manufacturing the steel to get your desired composition. And every composition is different based upon the product, whatever you wanted to achieve. So now, in supply chain of the steel industry, cost factors which are involved in the steel productions are mentioned in this slide. And the major cost factors include are the costs related to the raw material, which is actually 60 to 70%. And then the energy cost. When I talk about the energy cost, it means the cost of the electricity, natural gas, furnace fuel, oxygen, and the other gases, which is also very higher. And manufacturing and the processing cost is also third one, comes on the third higher cost. And the key inclusion here are the costs related to the melting, refining, casting, rolling mill operations, and the heat treatments. And the other cost could be related to the consumables, maintenance, labor cost, logistic and the supply chain cost, quality inspection cost, financial and the overheads. So overall, the raw material cost is higher. The raw material cost is higher. And after that, it is energical cost, the energy supply chain cost, the consumable and the maintenance cost, and the labor cost and the logistic and the other things. So these are the cost factors which are involved in the manufacturing of the steel industry. So while we are producing the steel, our goal should be to minimize the cost per ton while maintaining the quality, safety, and the sustainability. So now we talk about the procurement process in the steel industry. So the procurement scope is very versatile in the steel industry and very robust again. The key objectives of the procurement here is to ensure the production while with timely availability of the material, optimize the total cost of the ownership, ensure the quality data and compliance, build a strategic partnership between the suppliers in order to reduce the procurement risk, and make sure to deliver the product with the 5 R's, which I already mentioned in my previous slide. So procurement scope is very vast in the steel industry. You do the procurement of the raw material, scrap, refractories, ferroalloys, consumables, electrode fluxes, chemical and the gases, wear parts and spares. When I talk about rolling, you do the rolling mill spares procurement of the bearings, couplings, reheating furnace burners, refractory hydraulic oil, lubricants, electrical instrumentation, motor drive, PLC. It's a huge chunk of the procurement in the steel industry. So it actually the same. You actually identify the needs of your end user. You do the supplier sourcing, you do the negotiation with the suppliers, you put the purchase orders, and then you do the follow-up with the suppliers. You actually follow for the receipt, uh, good receipt notes, and perform the quality checks, which is actually done by the end user, and then process for the payments and process uh, improvements of the suppliers in terms of their on-time delivery, their quality, their pricing, and all those things. So the key challenges in procurement in the steel industries are the volatile raw material prices. Raw material prices never stable, long lead times, and it is actually not because of uh, you can say it is actually because of the global supply chain challenges, which is actually faced by every country around the globe due to the conflicts of the different nations. Sometimes it is also quality inconsistencies, the supply reliability, and global supply chain disruptions, which actually cause due to any conflicts, due to any unforeseen circumstances. And high inventory and the working capital is also another need of that. So while you're doing the procurement in the steel industry, your strong focus should be on the supply relationship, accurate demand planning, timely procurement and expediting, quality assurance of the product, cost optimization, risk mitigation, and sustainable and the responsible procurement. So the KPI, the key performance indicators of the procurement is the cost saving, on-time deliveries, which actually I already mentioned, supplier performance rating, and the spend compliance. While you're doing the procurement in the steel industry, your foremost and important duty is to enhance the stakeholder value, stakeholder management, and optimize working capital and reduce the cost based upon the negotiation with the supplier, engaging with the stakeholders based upon their needs and the requirement. When you do the stakeholder management in this thing, you actually focused on the key performance indicators of the procurement. Now, the material planning side, which is actually my side, also in the steel industry. The materials planning is about planning for the raw material, planning for the consumables and the refractories, casting material planning, like you do planning of the mold partners, copper molds, tundish nozzles, stopper rods, cooling water control uh, related spares like flow meters, like nozzles, etc. You do the planning of the utilities and the general item planning. If I talk about the utilities, it means you have to plan for the oxygen, nitrogen, the other gases. You need to do planning for the power, water, fuel, lubricants, and the oil required for running the melt shop. And similarly, you do the planning if you are working in the rolling mill side, you do the planning for the based on the billet receiving, based on the production schedule. You do the different size planning, you set the capacity planning, and you do the consumable spare part plannings of the rolling mills, especially planning of the rollers, bearings, lubricants, utilities, etc. So it is about its key objective is to ensure uninterrupted production, maintain optimal inventory, accurate demand planning, timely procurement and availability of the raw material. And the system and the tools, obviously, because there are so many raw materials, there are so many, thousand of the SKUs. Maybe it could be around 20,000 plus, 25,000 plus, depends upon how much bigger your steel industry is. So you have to use the ERP tools, enterprise resource planning tools, which could be related to the SAP HANA, Excel, Power BI, the min-max planning, MRP, And the ABC analysis strategy is very much important in the materials planning. And the basic parameters you include are the safety stock, economic order quantity if your consumption is fixed, consumption-based planning, if your if your material requirement varies, you do these things based upon the production planning. You assess the materials planning based on the bills of materials, and then you also read the diagrams, study the diagrams, read the catalogs, the bills of materials. You assess those materials based upon their operational requirement based on the Kraljic matrix. You put the materials, either they are critical, non-critical, operational or non-critical. And then you also set the budgeting and planning of these material based upon the department's requirement to set their KPI. In material planning, the major stakeholders are production, maintenance, procurement, stores, quality, finance, sales planning. While you're working in the material planning, you have to work cross-functional with all departments, by the production, maintenance, procurement, store and warehouse, quality, finance, and the sales planning in order to ensure the optimal orders planning. Basically, you are the epicenter of the entire supply chain. Being a material planner, you have to do the demand analysis, you have to do the planning and forecasting, prepare material requirement plan, forecast future need, MRP processing, procurement coordination for the purchase acquisition, follow with the procurement, expedite order for timely delivery. Inventory management is also very important to monitor the inventory levels, ensure optimum stocks, control inventory cost, and then you also have to maintain the supplier management with the OEMs, with those suppliers who are directly responsible for your equipment repairing. And you also expedite and follow up, track order status, follow up on the deliveries. So these cross-function coordination actually makes the planning, define the role of the material planner to, optimize the optimal order planning. And the last thing is to, you generate the reporting and you do the analysis of all those things to provide the data for the decision making. The data is very much important in the materials planning because based on the data, you actually do the planning. Now, the inventory management is also important in the steel industry. While you're doing the inventory management of the steel melt shop, the rolling mills containing induction furnace spares, coil capacitors, IGBT, refractory materials, ladle tonnage, furnace, ramming, CCM spares, mold, copper plates, hydraulic, pneumatic equipments, mechanical. There is a big engineering spares in the steel industry. Similarly, in the rolling mills, you actually do the planning of the gearboxes, the rollers, the couplers, the lubricants, crane, hoist and spares, etc. So this is a very big chunk of the spares in the steel industry, and I try to mention the complete spares categories in this slides and in my previous slide as well, so that my viewers can actually understand that how much complex supply chain and the operation management is in the steel industry and how much vast and we can say robust supply chain is in the steel industry. And while you are doing the inventory classification, you can apply the Pareto analysis, or we can say the ABC analysis, where you classify the class based upon the high values, medium values, low values, or if I talked about the inverse of this inventory classification, you can do the inventory planning based upon their consumption, based upon the 80-20 rules. And after that, you can also determine your key performance indicators. Your core objective in the steel industry while working is to minimize the stockouts, overstocks, and obsolete inventory, improve the spare parts planning and forecast accuracy, standard item and improve the data accuracy, improve the store's operation and the cycle time. So while you are doing it, you actually identify critical spares and classify those materials. Then you analyze that based upon the lead time, the cost and the demand patterns. You set the min-max planning EOQ with the coordination with the materials planning. And then after that, it is actually stores properly in the warehouse and then it is actually issues to the user. So inventory management and the warehouse management, they are almost work together, closely together, and their actually impact on business is very high. While you are working on the inventory, you have to make sure the spare parts availability, the inventory turnover, the stock out rate, inventory accuracies, the on-time delivery, and the saving achieved through optimization and the value engineering. So it is also about the inventory management is also about the right spare, the right quantity, the right quality, the right time, and the right cost. Now, this is the manufacturing in the steel industry, which actually I already mentioned about. So there are basically, according to the data which is mentioned earlier in my slide, according to the world steel industry is actually working on currently many of the companies are actually producing steel through three technologies. Number one is the blast furnace, number two is the electric arc furnace, and the number third one is the induction furnace. Blast furnace technologies are using the key input scrap, which are iron, ore, coke, limestone, as I already tell you earlier in my slides. The electric arc furnace is using the scrap, and while using the electric arc furnace, you also have to pass the steel through the ladle refining furnace technology as well. And similarly, in the induction furnace, you also have to do the same thing. It actually also major input is the scrap and you also add on some ferroalloys and you do the casting and then to produce the finished products in form of the billets. And then after that, you do the rolling based upon your product requirement. So in manufacturing management, you have to do the production planning and control. You have to focus on the process and the quality management. You have to focus on the maintenance management, preventive and the predictive maintenance, and the supply chain and the material management. Now, quality management is also very important, as I already talked about. The quality management in the steel actually plays a very critical role here. Uh, Quality management talks about the raw material inspection. They do the physical inspection of the raw material, especially the scrap. They check the size check, the supplier quality ratings, the chemical analysis they do. They do check the charge mix control, temperature control, tab weight control, slag, or you can say they check the chemical composition and also check the billet quality of the billets. And after that billet receiving inspection is done, it is actually passed through the reheating furnace in the rolling. And the rolling is also done and it is actually do the thermal treatment. And then it is actually check the final finished product. So this is the role of the quality management here. And quality management makes sure that there is a zero defect and ensure there should be the production should be based upon the ISO standards, and the key performance indicators are there should be zero rejection rates, less than 1%, on-time delivery and the process capability, and the customer satisfaction. So this is the role of the quality in the steel melt shop and the rolling mill. So the key quality controls are online chemical analyzers. They do the spectral analysis. They also measure the temperature measurements. Ultrasonic testing is also being done, and hardness test is also being done. Tensile strength being done in the rolling mill section. Now we are moving towards the conclusion of this presentation, and it's now about the warehouse management and automation in the steel industry. Um, when I talked about the warehouse management, so warehouse management basically process starts in between in the inbound flow, as you can see in the diagram, that when the purchase orders are given to the suppliers and suppliers start delivering that. So warehouse management actually receive that product and perform the quality inspection with the coordination of the end user. They put away, they store that on the bins, and either that could be the plant equipment spares machinery or could be the final finished product as well. And they do make sure that there should be also be the packing over there as well. So when we talk about the automation of the warehouse management, so automation in right now in the steel industry, as far as I know, there has been, um, based upon my experience and expertise, what automation I have seen so far and have worked in that is that we have actually seen the warehouse management module, which talks about the bin locations, which actually defines the bin locations, their addresses, so that whenever there is a requirement of any material, you don't need to have to look around every bin to issue the material. You must have the bin location address so that you can easily pick that material from the bin and then issue the materials on the time. For that, many companies are using the RFID barcode system. They are using the conveyor and automo auto, automated guided vehicles as well, IoT sensors as well. There are studies are going on, but what I have experienced and what I have worked on the bill locations address, because what I actually experienced while working in this site was that normally whenever the user has to issue any equipment or the spares, there was the problem of the issuance, because when there are 25,000 line items stored in the warehouse, you need to know their exact location. So when you don't know the exact location of any product, the time is actually got waste. User can suffer a lot. There could be a probability of the downtime if the equipment is very critical. So actually, I have worked in that side as well. So raw material area in the steel industry could be the raw material storage, work in progress storage, finished goods storage, spare parts, equipment storage, chemical, consumable, tool rooms, and the fixture as well. So this is actually the warehouse management and automation in the steel industry is going on, and studies are also going as well. Logistics also play a very critical role in the steel industry, as I already mentioned about that. Efficient logistic and the transportation ensure the right steel product in the right quantity to the right place at the right time and the right cost. So this is the benefit to the steel industry. Uh, Logistic play a very key role in the material sourcing, inbound logistic, in terms of handling the logistics. They actually used to do the outbound logistic planning as well in terms of transportation planning to the different customers, route optimization, route planning, and etc. Now, sales and marketing, it is also very important, to while you are producing the steel, it is also very important to do their sales of the product, the marketing of the product in order to get the good revenue for the steel. Uh, Sales and marketing functions are, y- they have to identify the market trends, demand patterns, pricing, and the new opportunities. They have to build the customer relationship and understand the customer requirements and the need. They also must be well understand about the product portfolio management. I mean, they should be aware of the right steel grade size and product functions. They must also do the pricing and the contract management with the competitive customers. Brand building and promotion is also very much important. So these things are the function of the steel and the marketing department in the steel industry. So product marketing and distributed could be rebars, steel wire rod, galvanized products, steel products, structural steels, etc. So while I talked about these supply chain, the role of ERP here is very much important in supply chain, because when you are dealing with a lot of data, it is important to that you must have digital operations and supply chain management systems in your company. So SAP is playing a very good role in this all. I mentioned about the material management only because it is my area. There is also financial management module is as well. And there is also about the project management as well, plant maintenance module is as well about the SAP. So SAP is actually talk about the master data foundation. It contains the centralized master material data, vendor master data, info record, and we can also get the procurement management data in terms of PR, request for the quotations, purchase orders, inventory management as well, stock management, invoice verification, payments, reporting, and analytics. So all these things can also be done by these things by the SAP. So SAP also has a different integrated module as well. As I talked about, it contains the module of the production planning, sales and distribution, financial accounting, quality management, plant maintenance module, warehouse management module as well. So now the steel industry, if any steel industry, they don't have these tools and techniques, then their operation could be very much complex. So in order to make sure that things are going end to end, these modules should be the part of your operations. Thank you very much for attending this session, this presentation. I hope you enjoyed this session. Do comment me on the video so that I can get your feedbacks, and also subscribe my channel as well so that your subscription actually supports me a lot, will support me a lot, and will allow me to actually come up with more contents on the supply chain management and engineering and on the different technological aspect currently going on in the engineering world. Thank you very much, and I wish you all the best and have a nice day.